amazing achievement of record numbers of Channel migrants crossing to the shore in the first 6 months of this year. Very good afternoon to you, Tony.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you very much. Apologies for keeping you waiting after I was rowing with Steve Headley about Gaza. 20,000 small boat migrants have already crossed this year in the first 6 months this year. It's another record. Yay! Well done, everybody. Goodness knows how high it's going to be by the end of the year. It depends what the weather is like through July and August and September. Labour promised to smash the gangs. Rishi Sunak previously had promised to stop the boats. Neither have managed to do either. How much worse is it going to get?
So it's important we keep calling out these figures, Julia. I'm glad you do keep calling out these figures. They are the only realistic measurement we have of any government success. The ambition from both the Conservatives and Labour has been to stop these flows across the English Channel. They've both failed. And we can only measure it by the numbers that are arriving. As you say, we are now in record territory, already halfway through the year. And some predictions suggest there's going to be a record year this year because we've yet to have the busiest month. So I can imagine people are really, really fed up with this, Julia, and frustrated by constant promises from different governments they're going to stop this from happening when they're not. One point I'd want to make to you, Julia, was I chaired a conference last month in Tallinn in Estonia with a number of other border agencies from across Europe. The European Border Agency were there, and they were showing us slides where, crossing into the EU borders, all their crossing points across the Med, the Eastern Front, across the African route are all down, actually. They have stopped. They have pretty well finally got the, under control.
How have they managed to do that? We know countries, even like Germany, under Angela Merkel, come on in, anyone who wants to in 2015 almost. But Friedrich Merz, the new Chancellor, basically within a day of getting to office went, right, we're basically closing our border to only the most, anyone, unless you are absolutely very, very likely to be someone who is seeking asylum as opposed to economic migrant, you are not going to even be allowed to cross our border. They've, I think, more than a 40% drop in the numbers overnight.
Yeah, they've done it because they're doing things that they won't let us do.
Yeah, well, no, we could do anything we wanted. We're not under the auspices of the EU. But how have the other countries around Europe been able to do it? Because you've still got people leaving, the Middle East and North and Sub-Saharan Africa to get to North Africa to go across the Med. Why are they not coming across in the same numbers?
Well, it's the eastern border. We could go out to one of the border crossing points with Russia, and that's shut now. And there's a fence running right the way down the whole of the eastern side with Russia. All of those borders are now pretty well closed, apart from a very small numbers of traffic. They are stopping people from entering. There have been actions taken against some of the countries on that eastern front for breaching the European Convention on Human Rights by not allowing. But they're not allowing people through, Julia, on the land border because they built these great big fences. Yeah. And they won't let them come across.
Can't get in, we don't have to deal with it. But this is really basic stuff, isn't it? It's not about having a nice relationship with Emmanuel Macron, which is what we were always told by Keir Starmer is what was going to solve the issue. And it was the Tories not sitting down around the table with Macron and Ursula von der Leyen. Whereas, of course, it's not in their interest for them to keep these people on the shores, although I've always thought it is in their interest to actually take these people back because these people don't want to stay in France. They've got to a perfectly safe, lovely country where I literally count down the days until I'm going on a holiday there, but these people don't want to stay there because they don't get the same benefits and help and the right to stay they get here in the UK. So those people probably wouldn't end up in France in the first place.
Yeah, exactly, and that's they would agree with you, Julia. Actually, you speak to the border agencies there. They say that why is it then that the only crossings that are going up are those outbound to the UK? It's because we are perceived to be a soft touch. Yeah. Because migrants see the UK still as a somewhere paved with gold. They think they're going to get a better deal here. They've got family, relatives, heard stories.
They speak English.
So people are crossing the EU borders now, not necessarily to stay in the EU. They're crossing the EU borders because they can get up through the Schengen zone up to the northern Calais, and then they're getting on the boats to come here. So we are really at the moment, I think, paying the price for the fact that we haven't been able to discourage people.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? So much is focused on, whether it's Rishi Sunak or previous, politicians or indeed Keir Starmer, on stopping basically the supply, like number of boats or cutting the gang numbers. Of course, it's such a lucrative business, this, that you just literally, you could actually arrest and imprison every single person involved in people smuggling today. Tomorrow, you'd have them all replaced because there's so much money in it. You have to stop the demand, and the demand is from the pull factors. You can work here without ID. You can do work as a delivery rider. You get your asylum hotel or your hostel or your flat. You're going to be given food and water. You're going to get a few quid as well. And the odds are you'll never be deported. You'll be living here forever. That's why people come. So unless we stop that, we're not going to stop people coming. What do you make of Donald Trump touring that newly built, in a matter of days, alligator Alcatraz in Florida, ready a deportation centre for illegal migrants? They've arrived in the country, no right to be there. They've been arrested by ICE. They're in this detention centre. They're going to be arriving, I think, from today or tomorrow. And then they're going to be flown back to their own countries. Do we need one of those ourselves?
Yeah. Our detention estate has been decimated since my watch. When I was in UKBA, we had double the number of beds now.
How many did you have then?
About 4,500, going up towards 5,000 on occasion.
But they were used not for long term. They were just like at the point when someone's arrested, ready for deportation.
Yeah, you've got to arrest people and detain them, Julia. Whether that's in Manston or in the ICE raids we're doing across the country. It's great doing more on those raids, but they're hugely frustrated, those teams. You'll take them into a police station and then there'll be no room at the inn. So you've got to let them go. They're back on bail again, and so you have to detain people. Now, it's probably, some people have a go at me for saying, I don't know what I am really, for saying you have to detain illegal immigrants. But I mean, it's a fact of life. I spent 40 years doing this. If you don't detain somebody when they arrive and keep them detained for as long as pending removal, once you give them bail and they're out in the community, that is the end of that. So we really I would turn Manston into a detention centre if I was still under the border force. The Home Office own that site. You could build a short-term holding facility for 5 days. You could have a long-term hold there. You could have family. I put my border force train. It's massive.
But haven't we had issues where people are being held for a long time, and then the human rights lawyers get involved, saying these are only supposed to be used for 48 hours, for 3 weeks, not for 2 years? And given how many years it does take for a lot of these applications to be processed, and then with all the appeals they're sitting there, that actually, the human rights lawyers would just say you can't do that.
Yeah, well, I think I told you before, I preside over the detained fast track system, Julia, which we did do, so we put asylum caseworkers in the detention centres with them, and we put courts in there. We were getting them done within a week, because the power to remove detain is linked to the power to remove. So you've got to show the courts that you've got an option of removal, but you have to detain them. You have to get these processed quickly, and you need that removals deterrent, Julia. You've got to have somewhere to send them. We're not sending any of the boat people back. You're getting stories. More people are going back now under voluntary departure. But
we're paying them.
They're not arriving on the boats. You need clear comms. You need to send reporters down there to see people coming off the boats, going to the airport and getting sent away.
Absolutely. But these people are running rings around us. I'm just going to mention this: an Afghan asylum seeker. He arrived in the UK. He claimed he was 15, despite the fact his hair was going grey at the side of his head. He literally had grey hair. The asylum court ruled that the migrant, who came on a small boat after 3 failed attempts, was in fact 15 when he arrived, even though he was found to have been an adult when he arrived. Authorities in the UK said he had an established jawline and lack of youthful glow. We are in clownland.
Well, if you spoke to the officers doing the screening down there at Western Jetfall, they would agree with you that this is complete nonsense. I mean, even the man, you don't need specific training to be at the spot. I mean, when they come off the boat, they have to point to a card, Julia, with a number on it, which is what their age is. And they're told by the smugglers to point to something below 18, right? Now, what do we do then? Most of them, we've got to get them through within 48 hours. If a border force officer has the audacity to suggest there might be, they go to a separate, very quick screening centre where we're urged to side on sort of caution. We need scientific age assessments, Julia. That was a proposal under the...
Well, lots of Europe does it, don't they? They do testing that's very clear and tells you the age.
Exactly, but they've balked at that. They have not introduced that. We are still waving through people, I'm afraid, who, in my view and your view, if you saw them, would clearly be over the age of 18.
It's absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. I mean, I'm a 15-year-old then. It's mad, isn't it? Tony Smith, so good we got to talk to you, former head of the UK Border Force. Thank you very much indeed.